I am a permaculture designer and consultant and educator, and I'm originally from Florida. In Florida, I was doing a lot of agroforestry consultation and installation with some friends of mine, and so like consultation and farm development is a big deal to me. The title of today's talk is kind of a working title, developing context-driven agriculture. It's scalable. That makes it sound like it's only for big projects. If you wanted to bring it down to like a more like quarter acre, like backyard garden sort of situation, it would be considerations for a garden. And so there's some big overarching ones, and then we'll get into like the nitty gritty, hopefully if I have time and I don't get sidetracked. When you come onto a piece of land, what's really important when you're developing a relationship with that land, because that's what agriculture ultimately is, it's stewardship, and you're developing a form of relationship, a very deep form of relationship with the land. Understanding the natural patterns of the land. And as a permaculturist, patterns are like absolutely everything. So understanding the way wind moves through your land. And this is totally scalable. I started out, my first project ever was on my mom's like quarter acre property, like 300 feet from the ocean. So wind was crazy there. Understanding your wind patterns, understanding your sun angles, understanding how close you are to a major road, understanding maybe every year there's a crazy like just a boom in squirrel populations or something like that, and you just need to you need to take time. And that's the biggest thing. When you first come onto a piece of land, you're all gung-ho, you're ready to go, you want to hit the ground running. But oftentimes the best thing you can do is put your shovel down, put whatever down, and just experience your land. And it's really sad, not sad, but in my consultation work that I've done in the past, people will come to me and they'll be like, we have 200 fruit trees ready to go on the ground. And I'm like, sell them. You don't know your land. I'm sorry, like you jumped the gun. You need to take the time to understand your land. I can push you in the right direction because based on my previous experience, I know certain things about the land, and I can tell you that. But ultimately, you have to know about your land. I skipped over something I really wanted to open with, and it was going to be so cool, so I'm going to. I was listening to a podcast recently, speaking of podcasts, called the Regenerative Agroforestry Podcast. You should all listen to that. It's awesome. A guy named Patrick Worms. Great last name. Love his last name. He was saying that a good agroforestry consultant doesn't come onto your farm and ask you, what trees would you like to plant? A good agroforestry consultant comes onto your farm and asks you, what kind of person are you? And when he said that, for me, I was like, just so stoked. I was like, that is what people need to hear. That's important. Because I've known so many people that just go onto people's land, plant jaboticabas, plant a banana, throw some mangoes in there, $1,000. And for me, I try to come at it a little bit more authentically and understand the context at which people live their lives. And that's so super important. Oftentimes the really big determining factors are time and money. And I hate to break it down to that, but ultimately in the world we live in, that's what we're dealing with. If you have a lot of time, you can put the work in yourself. Or if you have a lot of time and not a lot of money, I should say. If you have a lot of money but not a lot of time, you pay someone else to do it. If you don't have much of either one of those, you have a dream. At which case, you're gonna have to switch at some point. You're gonna have to change something about your life to make these things come together. And understanding and being truthful with yourself. This is all like, if you want to develop a successful farm or a successful garden, even if it's just a 4x8 box, if you want to successfully garden, you need to be truthful with yourself and understand what you have, what resources do you have. you might be something that I kind of lack. You might be like a great people person, and you know how to gather people around you, like Paul and Lauren, and you might be able to get volunteers to do a lot of your work. That's what a lot of permaculturists do. It's actually kind of funny. These great like permaculture farms, they're like fully run by volunteers. And it's like, man, that's cool. Keep your labor costs really low. That might be a skill set that you have, but being honest with yourself on what you have and what you don't have. You might have a huge amount of enthusiasm, but not a lot of skill. And that is going to lead to a lot of projects being done, but not finished. And that kind of leads to an unfinished farm. Which farms are, the beautiful thing about a farm is it's a piece of artwork that's ever evolving. It's never actually done, but you're just closer. It's like you're at a state of efficiency, I guess I could say. If you are, where do I want to take that actually? I kind of lost my train of thought. When you're developing your garden and when you're developing your farm, if you are the kind of person that likes automation, like I'm a tractor guy. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I love a good tractor. And one of the things that's been a personal, if I bring myself into this, a personal thing out here is because I'm used to flat Florida, you can develop your entire farm around tractors. It's actually super easy. You just space all your tree rows. You figure out how wide your tractor is. You space all your tree rows either 2 or 3 tractor lengths away from each other. Super easy. Out here, because of the fact that we have so much slope, like on the farm over there in the avocados, it is not mechanizable at all. And you are totally dependent upon hand labor, which in a place that you don't get a huge amount of money for avocados, and they take a huge amount of water, and you have huge property taxes, having huge labor is not super great. So that's very specific context that we have to work within. Understanding we're not going to get a huge amount of money for them. They have a large amount of expenditures. Is this something that we really want to pursue? I don't know. I'm not really the one that pulls the trigger on that. For me, I would not pursue avocado out here. And I know that's a dangerous thing to say because are there any avocado farmers here?
They were here earlier. There was some
that are part of our school and everything. Yeah, but they
Well,
bought the property just like Kylie and James.
Yeah, I'm stepping out of the camera. I keep doing it. Yeah, it's when you look at the context of the situation out here, and this isn't a critique of avocado farming right now, but when you look at it from and this is when you're developing your farm too, when you look at your context from an open mind, unbiased, not trying to force a situation, like you have these things and they have to work, it opens your mind to, we have to pivot away from this. And pivoting away is, we were talking about that earlier, pivoting, especially when you have like established groves, is difficult. Or just in your life in general. When you are looking to, how do I want to word this? I didn't write any of this talk down. Normally I come into a talk like a little bit more prepared, but I wanted to freewheel it to see how I did.
So great. So far so good.
Yeah, thank you. And I kind of talked about this briefly, but understanding your skill set, and being honest with you, because this is work that you can get really, really hurt. Like it's almost like professional, like sport-esque in the level of like physical activity that you have to like put yourself through. Like I have cuts all over my hands from I was pruning big oak trees, and like my hands are all effed up from it right now. It's just the way the game is. Understanding what you can and cannot do safely. And that this does apply to even a very small backyard. If you have your 4x8 box and you're not necessarily good with a drill and like 3-inch screws, you might stick a screw right in your hand when you're putting that thing together. So just understanding what your capabilities are, and if you have a weakness, if you have a weakness, being able to develop a group around yourself that you have people that can pick up your slack, more or less. And I was talking about this earlier also. If you, being a farmer, being a permaculture designer, being whatever it might be that we are, it isn't necessarily about being the best of everything. You don't need to be the best solar power installer or the best natural builder or the best tree pruner. You have the things that you're good at, but you also know, like Steve over there, man, he's the best wheelbarrow in 3 counties. If I need a wheelbarrow something, I'm calling Steve. And being truthful with yourself, because a big thing with farm development, farming, gardening, and I've heard this over and over and over again in consultation world, is like burnout and loss of interest. And it's a scary world. You put all this love, you put all this effort into this project, and then your tomatoes get early blight, and you lose every single tomato you grew. It's really discouraging. So that's super important to like keep in your mind, in my opinion. Most of this talk is actually opinion based. It's based on my experience in the industry. The thing is when you fight your context, when you are fighting against nature, because understanding the patterns of your land is understanding the nature of your land. And when you work within your context and when you work within the natural patterns, man, the dogs are going hard. When you're working within, when you're not fighting your context, when you're not fighting against nature, things flow a different way. And you're not at war with the earth. So much of agriculture today, so much of modern agriculture was actually developed after World War II. Like chemical companies and companies that were just like, well, we don't know what to do now, so we're just gonna go to war with the world, or like with the earth. So working within within the contextual framework of your property, whenever you're working within the contextual framework of your property and the greater macroorganism of like the world, it leads to a happier life, in my opinion. Yeah. That's more or less all I got. I'm a little bit short. Does anyone have any questions, actually? I want to open it up to questions.
So I have an avocado tree.
Yeah. An avocado farm or one tree?
I have maybe about 8.
Okay, that's not bad. Yeah.
And this one I've had for probably almost 4 years.
Yeah.
And I moved a lot
Mhm.
last year.
Yeah.
And so I noticed like maybe 4 months ago,
Mhm.
it started turning black at the top.
Okay.
So I went from like LA area,
Mhm.
San Jacinto, Hemet.
Mhm.
And I know the Hemet's more like a desert.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the tip of it became black, and it stayed black,
Mhm.
very tip. And now I'm seeing that it's coming down, right? And it's all dying.
Is this a potted tree or is it in the ground?
I did, and listening to you, you said get to know your land first.
Yeah.
I didn't. I wanted to get it in the dirt.
Mhm.
And that was my first mistake. I should have kept it in the pot
Mhm.
and let it kind of get used to the climate or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then I put it in the dirt and I started seeing that it was going pretty quickly, so I took him back out. And I put him in a pot in front of the house. He was getting a lot of shade and
Mhm.
all that. But I saw that the black is quick, it's moving quick. And this tree is probably like 5 feet tall.
Okay.
Where I'm seeing the energy leave, it's probably at this point.
Yeah.
But it has grown some branches at the lower part. Now,
Mhm.
this part,
Yeah.
few branches, and they're healthy. Usually they're super healthy.
Yeah.
Like they want to grow. But I don't know whether I need to cut that part off,
Mhm.
and because I don't know exactly. I know that the energy of the tree will go into those branches, but I'm almost feeling like if I were to do that, am I damaging the tree? Is it gonna die? I
No.
feel like it's such a ghost.
Pruning is one of the best things you can do for a tree. Brief lesson. if you're okay with, if everyone here is okay with it. When you prune a tree, it releases hormones. One of them is gibberellic acid, and it is a growth hormone. So when you cut a tree, you're literally doing the best thing you can do for it, because you're telling that tree sends out information in the form of gibberellic acid, telling it's, well, this is a potted tree, but not only does it tell itself to grow, but if it was in the ground, it tells everything around it to grow. So pruning trees, especially senescent trees, is like the best thing you can do for them. If I see an avocado, honestly, what I would do if I saw a tree in person is, whether you wanted me to or not, I just cut it.
At which point?
Without seeing the tree, without like me actually seeing it, there's a point where the black turns into healthy stem, yeah?
Yeah.
Just underneath that. So you're cutting it right at the healthy stem. Use sanitized tools, and you should be good to go. I do know when avocados get burned, like when it's too hot for them, they do that sometimes. Hopefully you don't have Phytophthora, but I doubt you do.
What is it?
The whole tree wilts. You have healthy branches, so you shouldn't have Phytophthora.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
have that. No, they
Generally, planting a tree, digging it up, trees don't necessarily like that. So it also probably went through some form of shock from that too. And I have no way of knowing if you severed a taproot or anything like that. So
what does that look like?
the taproot,
Yeah.
avocados aren't necessarily taproot dominant, but it's the root that goes down.
Yeah, it's not very good.
Okay.
It's hollowed out.
Oh, the root is hollowed out?
Yeah, that main root, that big
Yeah.
one, it's hollowed out, but it's surviving off of all the other little.
Yeah. So it probably got severed at some point. I just prune it and feed it, give it something good, some food, and go from there. Generally, if you could feed it a biological, like something that has either fungi or beneficial fungi or bacteria in it.
So what I did was I went to the beach.
Yeah.
And I got a gallon of beach water.
Mm-hmm.
And I put like a small amount per gallon. And
Yeah.
I gave them some of that.
So that's micronutrients, which is good. Total, like, props for you for doing seawater, because that's like kind of some cool stuff that you just did there, whether you know it or not.
No, I learned it.
Cool. But the biologicals, like, all life is dependent upon soil biology, including us. So inoculating that tree with some good biology. There's several products you can buy. If I was doing a talk on Korean natural farming, then it would just be like, it'd be super good, because Korean natural farming is all about increasing the soil biology. We can get together and talk a little bit about that once I get off this stage. Yeah. But yeah, prune the tree. Some friends of mine in Brazil, they have the Agroforestry Academy YouTube channel. Their phrase, like on their opening thing, is keep it pruned. So, prune it. Yeah. Does anyone have any more questions? Yeah?
What would be the most like sustainable tree or fruit to grow, like that would last for the longest amount of time, where you can just keep harvesting?
That is a loaded question, my friend. So I'm going to ask you some questions. In order to answer that question, I have to ask you questions. For what area?
San Diego.
San Diego. In what? Okay, this brings back the talk.
Yes.
What is it? Or do you want 1 tree, 10 trees, 50 trees, 100 trees?
Like a couple trees, probably less than 10.
Less than 10. How big is the space that they're going into?
Probably 1,000 feet by 1,000 feet.
Okay. What's your water?
What do you mean?
Like, do you have city water? Okay, city water like is notoriously bad in California, so that's something to take into account. Right now, we're actually doing a consultation, by the way.
Complimentary.
Yeah. How much time do you have? Time's not an issue for you. I mean, how much, like, do you work a full-time job?
I do, yes.
Okay. So how many hours a week would you be willing to put into your trees? Are you a set it and forget it kind of guy, or are you a go out and like prune it like?
Not necessarily. No, if I'm into the fruit and everything, I get pretty ridiculous. But I would say probably 2 to 3 hours a day.
2 to 3 hours a day. Okay, that's actually not bad for like 10 trees. Now a huge part of this, and I didn't actually talk about this at all, is a huge part of context. And when you're developing a garden or a farm less, but a garden more, is like, what do you like? Yeah, what do you actually eat? So now I have to ask you some questions about your life. Do you enjoy olives?
Yes, but they're not. I don't have to have them.
See? That right there is a defining thing. Because honestly, the answer to that question is olive tree.
Okay.
But you don't like olives. So there's no point in planting it for you. In San Diego. And I'm still, like I said, I'm originally from Florida, so I'm like still learning this area.
What about an avocado tree?
Did you listen to the beginning?
I'm gonna answer that the best way I can. If you put a 5,000-gallon tank on your house, water tank for catching rainwater, on your house, and you supplement the water usage of your avocado, of like 1 to 2 avocado trees, with that water, then in my mind it's justifiable to plant an avocado.
Can you use your gray water?
Is it legal in California to do that?
I didn't ask that.
Yeah.
Was that legal or
Is it lawful?
It is ethical to use your gray water.
Thank you.
It's
You
lawful.
probably couldn't tell your certifier.
Yeah.
If you were
If
doing that, but
that's a great question. If it was me and I could put a reed bed in, which is like one of the best way of cleaning gray water, and then you can even clean black water with it, I would totally love to do that, because then you have a constant supply of water to the avocado, which you have to have. I just don't. If you're in what I would refer to as the shitty, I don't know how easy it is to get away with that. But I fully support it. Fully support you putting in a reed bed in it at your house. Avocados are great. Avocados are a good source of fat. They're just so water demanding, and we're pretty much in a desert here, so it's hard for me to say avocados are actually ethical.
The same thing.
But they're delicious
But they're really good.
and expensive.
Can we just
Yeah.
say the same thing about nut trees?
Oh my god.
most of them.
Like almonds.
A lot of them are pretty thirsty, yeah.
I feel like our macadamia nut is not as bad though. It produces like crazy and it
Yeah.
doesn't get water. It's super heavy.
Macadamias are pretty good too. I really enjoy macadamias.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But if you were in town though, would you suggest maybe putting in 10 different trees so that you have good production year round?
Conceptually, I mean, if you're going the homesteading route, yes. If you're going small market garden route, then having enough of something to sell is a big deal. I'm still trying to learn this guy's life. Because it's honestly, what you asked is a really hard question.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Without doing like a full-blown consultation for you, the honest answer is, if you want sustainable food production for 1,000 years, plant olive trees. If you want, like, San Diego has a huge amount of potential for mango, and mangoes are so good. But you have to like mangoes. And the thing is like, mangoes have, their sap is very similar to poison ivy, so you have to know that going into mangoes. Yeah. I used to pick thousands of pounds of mangoes and sell thousands of pounds of mangoes. From May till August, my whole body was one big rash. But I was making enough money that I was like, F it. It's sweet. But I've seen the California like Mango Growers Association. There's a lot of people fruiting good mangoes in San Diego.
Can we do papayas down here? Because I knew some people that were trying it up in the Sacramento area.
I wouldn't do it in Sacramento, but
They were,
yeah.
Way
I
too
mean,
cold.
rare fruit growers.
if you are on your stuff and you get your seed started in February, you can harvest before you get a frost. I have friends that do it in parts of Florida that they get frosts. But you're growing it like a long-term annual. You have to start seeds every year. It's not necessarily perennial. You might get a light frost and it kills the tree, but it comes back from the roots. It's actually not technically a tree, it's a plant, but yeah, it's a big herb. If I want to be really scientific. Yeah.
You mentioned Korean natural farming and soil inoculation.
Yeah.
Can you explain the process and benefits of that a little bit more in depth?
I don't know if I have time, but
We're pretty much at time.
Why don't you talk to him during the intermission?
I'll talk to you right now.
We'll talk later.
Yeah. All right.
That's the next talk, huh?
Sorry, dude.